for joining us, the Wealthy Retailer Podcast with your host, Dan Holman. Every episode, Dan dives into the retail headlines that matter to you, the independent retailer, covering topics ranging from retailer inventory, technology, marketing, retailers' questions, and more. The Wealthy Retailer Podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Learn more at retailbycrs.com. And now, here's Dan Holman.
Hey everyone, good morning or afternoon, I guess, whenever you're listening to this podcast. We are the Wealthy Retailer, and today, the week of May 20th, Rob, May 20th.
Yep, May 20th. Victoria
Day on our doorstep here in Canada, and did it snow like a son of a bitch here last night?
The wardrobe solutions in Alberta consist of you wear your shirts a couple days ago, winter jacket today, shorts in a day or two again. I like to say it's because hockey playoffs are starting today for the team.
Oilers,
so a little reminder that here's some snow to let you know hockey's still going on.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. It'll be out of here quick. I don't know. It's like this one day just got lost.
Right.
And hey, where are you? Get out of here. You're not supposed to be there.
Yeah, I know it's double digit again tomorrow, I think already. So
yeah, like I say, just weird little weather anomaly and that. Hey, some good headlines. I'm looking forward to, as always, hearing your thoughts on the different things coming our way. A few stories this week that we'll be touching on. One of them is Lightspeed. They've come out with another new announcement. They've partnered with Google in a global deal. Yep. And this is aimed in boosting small business online. And so that'll be cool. And I like this, 5 signs that retail is going to be okay and some good indicators, showing the path forward. And then, we talked about, whether it's summer fashion or winter fashion, but a story about fashion is adapting for that post-pandemic lifestyle. So, some good stuff this week. And then, of course, as always, Dan, you got a retailer question coming your way, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts there. Okay, Dan. Yeah, that first story comes from the financialpost.com, talking about this new partnership between Lightspeed and Google. What jumped out at you in this story? What were some of your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it seems like once a month, Dax De Silva, the founder and CEO at Lightspeed, announces another advancement with their product. And I like to think of, some of these stories, or, and we see a lot of these stories. I should start by saying there's a lot of this in the news between Lightspeed and Shopify. And there is this King Kong versus Godzilla. And Shopify is perhaps the Godzilla, a little bit more raw, a little bit perhaps less refined than King Kong, who really is Lightspeed right now in retail POS and technology. And this latest announcement from Zach reports that they've now have this early ability to embed Google's advertising tools directly into a retailer's commerce site. It is only on the Lightspeed commerce site.
Right.
But, Dax has been a bit of a groundbreaker. That maybe pumps the tires up a bit, but he has been a bit of a groundbreaker in some of these, technology partners, and the way that Lightspeed has grown, not just in the last year, but in the last several years. They announced, it was only a month or so ago that they announced a $350 or $450 million acquisition with Vend. Vend is one of our New Zealand POS partners that now owned by Lightspeed. And this product that Google or Alphabet, that he made the deal with Alphabet, who is the majority shareholder at Google, to embed Google's tools right into their own websites, which then means that, we can integrate and show products out on our Google ads. And there's going to be more of these partnership announcements from Dax. I think he goes on to say a little bit later in the article, they're going to work to integrate the same type of relationship with suppliers to the indie retailers, creating a bit of a seamless transition for inventory displayed. So, what do I like about this article? Just the fact that one of the fastest growing, largest growing point of sale entities is saying to the indie retailer, shit, girls, you got to be on Google. Man, you got to get on Google. We've got to be able to be part of the Google mix. And, more importantly than DAX's integration here, Lightspeed's integration, is the message that retailers have to be using Google, and more importantly, local search optimization. Google has seen searches for local businesses, spike 80% year over year, and inquiries on product inventory at nearby smaller retailers or small merchants. This question, who has gym equipment in stock, has surged by 8,000%. And so we should also be building and running, along with those product-driven ads, what you have available in your store, ads that speak to who we are, or even better, why we are. And again, we talked about the three big ones last week: Alphabet, ByteDance, and I don't know, who am I forgetting? Oh, Zuckerberg.
Oh, that guy.
That guy. We talked about these last week or maybe 2 weeks ago on the podcast. And Google is taking a larger share in pushing the indie retailer out in front of the audience, and perhaps ahead of some of those bigger paid guys.
The when you talk about this, head to head, the battle, these big beasts, King Kong and Godzilla, where's the conversation start with you and your partners, Dan? That I believe Lightspeed kind of bills themselves when it involves more complexity. Lightspeed seems to be the direction where Shopify is a bit more, we'll say, a bit more that smaller retail. And as you said, they're each kind of finding their tools that I'm quite certain at the end of the day, they're all going to have a version of that.
Well, I'm going to say today, let's think back. We've been Lightspeed partners for a long time. So we've been part of that Lightspeed family. And Lightspeed today is at a place where they're building products and integrating products that are theirs, that they wholly own. Shopify's not there yet. Shopify, even 20 years old, is still in its infancy. It is still relying on the developer marketplace to build integrations for their product. They are a simple e-com platform. I said this to a retailer yesterday, a large retailer who's still on Shopify. You've got to start thinking about Shopify as only your shopping cart. It is not business intelligence. It contains very little business intelligence and the ability to access good data and tell a story about your customer from a pure data perspective on the inventory side. Yes, they have good conversion and traffic analytics, and they can ABC a product, but that's to their limit on Shopify. And Lightspeed is certainly at a more mature place when it comes to analytics. And they are, as Dax goes on to say, there's actually a video in this article, a 10-minute video. These public companies, they get that opportunity to, to be on Ameritrade and everywhere else and share their story. And so, Dax has done a good job sort of migrating to that path. And he's going to go on to tell you that the shopper has evolved. And as a point of sale provider, we need to evolve as well. And that just puts them one step ahead of everybody else that's still focused on, let's build a point of sale system that's really disconnected from the user and the consumer.
Well, people out there are wondering what Canadians do on cold, wintry nights. They build giant POS systems. But one of the things that just as a bit of a thought, when I think of that integration with Google, like you go on there, you type baseball hat, where can I buy a baseball hat? These results show up, these shopping results, and it makes me just encourage again retailers, be it their own retail brand or we've talked about creating their own brands within, because without it kind of jumps right to price, right? Because it's showing you side by each with all the other options there, and so it does still put a bit, I'd say quite a bit of prominence on the brand value as well, or it's a race to price.
Well, and if you're not promoting your brand, if you're not promoting the who and why, more importantly, the why than the who, then you're only going to play a price game. And, who wins in the price game? One person and one person only, and that's the vendor. The vendor's the only one that ever wins because they're not adjusting their price for you.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's
Even
a good
when
point.
they go direct to consumer, they're not adjusting their price. So the vendor wins in this. And
you're the one who has to discover it doesn't work.
Yeah. And listen, I've spent a long time becoming horribly successful at, racing to the bottom. And Rob, that's just not what we do in retail. That's not it can't be our strategy. And price is a race to the bottom of the barrel, man.
Okay. Well, thanks for the points on that and a lot of good stuff. And let's transition over to the next story coming from retaildive.com. It's a great headline and, encouraging as we get up, we dust off and looking ahead. But the 5 signs that retail is going to be okay. It goes through a few things here. Dan, what'd you like?
Yeah. Well, Daphne Howland is the author here on Retail Dive that put this article together. And it shows, it highlights the 5 signs that, everything's going to be all right, man. It's a little Bob Marley or...
Do we start singing right now?
if you're young, you know who Bob Marley is. Maybe it's a Kenny Chesney song. I don't know. But yeah, in retail, everything is going to be all right. If you're doing the right things. And there are 5 points. I'll sort of highlight their 5 points. Number one, retail sales have risen through most of the pandemic. And we have and will continue to see double-digit growth year over year. And many retailers, Rob, are seeing monthly sales growth over their pre-pandemic months. So April finishes up better in 21, certainly than 20. That's a no-brainer. But also better than 19. We are seeing a retail resurgence. So number one is that, hey, there's some retail growth happening. And while April over March might have slowed a bit, in Canada, it's coming on the back of this BS closing down of stores again. And it's without a doubt going to see a dip in sales in April and May. And then if these premiers can get their heads out of their asses, and maybe get this country back to a place where we can do business, we're going to see a strong rebound in June through September as we head back into fall. So number 2 for them was that it may be a new day for clothing sales. And we've seen significant bounce back in athleisure, dresses, outdoor, tees. I mean, any apparel-based retailer right now is performing very well. And even formal wear has started to rebound as we gear up for that, optimistic summer. Right? We're seeing weddings rebooking. We're seeing formal wear. Our tuxedo stores are seeing rental bookings again. So there is a bit of a shift for our apparel stores, and we're going to be okay. And we're going to talk about some trends in the next story that comes from Apox, I think it was. But yeah, so number 3, this one is always inspiring to me, and I think you and I have talked about it. There's more store openings than there are store closings. And this data from Retail Dive, when viewed as a percentage, is as accurate in Canada as what we're seeing in the US. At the end of March, or as the end of March approached, or as of end of March, maybe I should say, retail openings were outpacing closings by about 21%. So
awesome.
For every 10 stores that opened, 8 closed. So we're seeing this 20% growth.
Bit of net new.
In opening versus those that are closing.
Is your sense of it, Dan?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going Okay, you go.
Whose show is this, man? I was just going to say, in the U.S., we're something like 3,350 stores closed as of, March 21. Opened as of 21, and 2,950 closed. So we are definitely seeing retail growth. Now, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No. It was just kind of a curious question of do you think this is retailers who have lost, dusted off, and reopening something new? Or, we've shared many stories where these are people coming out of other industries, other specialties, and they're opening their own retailer stores, or is it a mix and match?
It's totally a mix and match. We've seen companies rise from the ashes. Swimco here in Alberta is one of those stories. Swimco closed every single one of their stores, and then about 6 or 8 weeks ago, relaunched their e-com store, Swimco. So Swimco is back in and open. After closing, I don't remember the total number of stores that they had, 10 or 12 or a dozen, 13 Baker's dozen, whatever it was, but they've reopened. So you're definitely going to see, Rob, a combination of people that have dusted themselves off, that have reformulated their business plan and are reopening. But you are also seeing, brother, the people that are leaving corporate Canada and corporate America to do their own thing.
All right. Hey, what's the next one?
This is the one that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Some passion here.
No, Dan, wasn't there a couple more things in the? Sorry, I'm thinking of the 5 signs of retail we were talking about.
Oh yeah, shit. Sorry. Yeah. We had 3. Okay, number 4. See what happens when we jump off.
I blew you off track, man. I know. I blame me. I'm good at that. I got big
squirrel, man. All right. So yeah, number 1 was retail sales are rising through the pandemic. Number 2, a new day for clothing retail. Number 3, more stores are opening. Number 4 is telling us that the industry's recovery is broad-based. And this statistic or stat came from Moody's Investor Service that reports that it's expected retailers' operating profit in the aggregate will grow this year to a robust 10 or 12%. And the National Retail Federation chief economist, Jack Kleinhens, noted the same thing. And I think I maybe already beat up on premiers a little bit, but I hate to say this, but I'm saying this because it's the truth. As we see more and more of our population line up for vaccination, government will lose its shutdown control, and retailers are going to see significant benefit from this pent-up demand. And profit is going to come from us being lean. We've been forced into this lean position. We've let go of the fluff staff that exist in our business and held on to only those that are essential to us. And it's helping us become more lean in our operating ability. And we are going to see better profits. And we're already seeing that. We're measuring profitability with our retailers every single month. We need to know where break even is every month so that we can see profit. And the elusive double-digit profitability is going to find a bunch of retailers, or the retailers are going to find that profitability.
Awesome.
And then number 5, of course, we have to talk a little bit about evolution. And Retail Dive's 5th sign that everything's going to be all right is that retailers have evolved this year, or in the last 15 months. And we've become, or are in the process, as I said, Rob, of becoming more lean, way more lean. And probably more lean than we were ever, even when we, perhaps first started.
Yeah.
And we have today better managed inventories. We've learned to spread our cash out. We've learned to adopt technology that allows us a broader reach. And most of us retailers have shifted our thinking to become profit first, which is the only key factor in any sustainability. You've got to think in terms of profit first. And so we are evolving as a retail community. So yeah, whether it's Bob Marley or David Lee Murphy or Kenny Chesney, man, everything is going to be all right in retail. If you're lean, if you're healthy, and if you know how to get healthy. You got to see the signs of illness very, very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I love that part you said about and we've talked about this too, the retailers broadening their reach, looking into different corners, different channels that were not a temporary, but a forced, we got to find new channels. But then when we get back to normal, you're not going to walk away from those. You've got these added means of selling in your business. So
yeah, we've broadened our horizon here. We've broadened our market reach through the acquisition of technology.
This podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. We've been empowering retailers across North America for 30 years with the latest in point-of-sale technology, best-in-class support, merchandise intelligence with open-to-buy planning, and much more. CRS has the retail solution to help take your retail business to the next level of success. Visit retailbycrs.com to learn more. Remember, Canadian Retail Solutions exists to help make you, the independent retailer, better.
Okay, Dan, now's the time for that fashion story. Coming from Axios.com, a story about, fashion is adapting for that post-pandemic lifestyle. The sweats are getting put away, and what'd you see out of this story, Dan?
Yeah, this was a really good article, and I've read a bunch of stuff from these guys, and so I'm going to share a bit of this article. I'm going to say verbatim, but I'll do it as close as I can. I'm not as eloquent as some of these writers. So, but this is what they write. Consumers and retailers alike are still trying to figure out what Americans and Canadians will want to wear as they head back out into the world after a year at home in sweatpants.
Yep.
And so why does this matter? Well, the choices people make about their post-pandemic wardrobe will help define what exactly our new normal is. They'll indicate how both work and socializing has changed, and will tell a story of how people are expressing themselves in the aftermath of a year of transformation. Yep. And so let's just pause for a second and think about the people that you've engaged with in the last couple of months. There is certainly, a large portion of the audience that's dressing down for business. And then there is that portion that always dressed down that's now dressing up for business. That we're seeing this mixture of what people are wearing, even out in their business attire, right? I mean,
Yep.
Are ties going to exist in a few months at anything but a wedding or a funeral? And I mean, funerals have, been virtually non-existent. I shouldn't laugh when I say that word, but funerals have virtually been non-existent or have lived in a virtual
Yep.
setting, which, means that we're more casually dressed. And I think this article is going to highlight some of that. So we do want to pay attention to what we're doing and what we're watching as sales begin to tick back up. Both men and women seem to be moving on from the lockdown, but looks aren't simply snapping back to what they were, that pre-pandemic taste.
Yeah.
Handbags or handbag designers are still making compartments for hand sanitizer, and will probably continue, said Lainey Schreiber of Latico Leathers. We made sure to include pockets for all of our new essentials, right?
Yeah.
And so some of the habits that we formed are going to live inside fashion going forward, or inside the products that we buy going forward. This article also highlighted some of the things that were trending. And so Camille Wright of Style Consortium, which is a multi-line showroom, says, not a lot of suits and almost anything without a zipper or buttons is selling right now. They cannot get enough dresses. Everyone wants to wear a dress. Rob, you can let it out. It's okay. They want to be pretty.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going to tell you that for all of the retailers, the fashion retailers that I personally work with, dresses is on a boom.
That's
and
awesome.
In stores where dresses was our worst ever investment, it's now the best investment. It's got massive return on investment if we're buying the right dresses for our audience. And we're going to talk about, what we should be paying attention to.
Okay.
So if they can't get enough dresses, what else is it? Well, it's anything soft and flowing, especially in block prints and bright colors, pink, turquoise, lavender, all in. So if you're a fashion retailer, maybe check out this article in our newsletter this week and see more of what that, these ladies that are part of, the style consortiums and the designers and, upcoming markets are showing as the trend. And so I'm going to ask Rob, what else should we be paying attention to? I'm going to ask the question, but it's perhaps rhetorical. I want us, if we're not yet looking at our store's performance on a deeper classification level than we ever have to start making that shift. We need to know at a class level what's performing when. And the most important lesson that we've learned in the last few months, sales and discounts are not making consumers act. It's not making consumers buy. They want new, fresh merchandise. We need to be paying very, very close attention to our new goods and landing them in the store every single week. We talked about the race to the bottom. And if you're going to just slash and burn prices to try to clean up your inventory, it's a slow ride to the bottom, not a fast one, because the consumer right now wants new. And listen, this is perhaps even a proven statistic in our world. 3 out of 10 customers that walk in your store are perhaps prepared to buy something that's on markdown. 7 out of 10 don't even want something on markdown because they think there's something wrong. So every time you red pen an item, it's telling them there's something wrong with it. And subconsciously, you're perhaps stopping your customer from making that buying decision. You're far better off to use a promotional strategy in your store than a simple slash and burn strategy in your store.
Dan, you mentioned going to markets, and I think that kind of touches in the retailer question of the week that came up for you this week. Tell us about this conversation.
Well, so this happened at the very end of last week. I was on a call with Kay from Sassy Bee. Kay is one of what I call our wealthy retailers. She is in Virginia, and talked about, there's a bit of panic out here right now, Dan. She's in home goods and accessories, home accessories, a little bit of personal accessories. But really, we think of her as a home goods and accessory category store. Perhaps kitchen for some other stores that aren't sure where that lands. And she talked about that there is a bit of a panic right now, that even the reps and the wholesalers are saying we're running out of product. You got to place orders sooner than later. There's going to be a deficiency. And this is the exact same thing, Rob, that we're seeing across every single vertical that we work in. Cannabis is the only vertical that seems to have a pretty decent supply. Cannabis and liquor is holding its own, but everything else is challenged. 1 in 3 bike stores this year are going to file. We're in trouble in the bike industry, and perhaps we're not even really recognizing it. In home goods, the same thing. There is a massive shortage. There's a supply chain disruption, and we're seeing it in apparel. We're seeing it in home goods. We're seeing it in furniture. Furniture's got 16 to 20 week lead time to buy a, bloody sofa. So we're seeing lots of disruption. And so then, our conversation with Kay quickly moved to, should I go to Dallas market? It's not one that I normally attend, but it's ahead of Atlanta. Should I get there and get there early? And I said, yeah. If there's an opportunity for you to go to market, you got to go to market. You can't even hesitate. You can't even think twice about it. You have to get to market. And more importantly, because of there being a supply challenge, you've got to be looking for other opportunities in your store. And there's 2 things that have really happened. We've seen, as we just talked about, a ton of stores close and a bunch that are reopening. And do you want that reopened store to have a line that perhaps you might have wanted? So let's get in front of them. Let's get to market. And going to market allows us the opportunity to expand our horizon, to look out at more. And we should be attending every possible market that we can go to in search of the next A-list vendor, A-list item, A-list product in your store. And, for Kay, going to Atlanta is a hell of a lot easier than probably going over to Dallas, Texas. But she's probably going to get ahead of someone else by going to Dallas. And she's going to see things early that she can now start to realign her assortment, her presentation, our budget when we go to buy. And so this conversation happens with Kay. I think it was last Friday morning. And between Friday and yesterday, I had 3 more conversations with customers or clients, retailers, pardon me.
Same topic.
On the same topic. Dan, I'm starting to get, barraged with Magic invitations. And should I be going to Magic? And now No Show has announced they're coming back. And, what should I be doing? And I'm like, come hell or high water, you got to go to market. If you got to drive yourself or walk your ass across the border to fly on a plane, to get on a plane somewhere, do it. You've got to be protecting your business by buying product. If you're not buying, you ain't selling.
And as you said, right now, a lot of time is money right now.
Yeah. And for the Canadian retailers, fashion retailers, that aren't going to New York like they maybe normally would, or not going to LA like they maybe normally would, it's gotta be a high priority to get to these markets, a high priority. And I'm not saying, oh my God, sacrifice your life and go to market. Do what you got to do to protect yourself, but get your ass to market. We got to go to market. And so then that's maybe for me, Rob, a bit of a segue. If you are going to go to market, here's 3 things that I really think you need to pay attention to at market. You got to walk the floor. If you're that person that just books yourself with appointments and you never get to see anyone new, you're missing 90% of what market's all about. You got to get to market and you got to walk the floor. You got to take some notes. You got to write things down that you want to go back and revisit. You spend that first day or half a day just cruising the floor looking for things that inspire or excite you. If you only go back to your booked appointments, you miss the good stuff. And no matter what show you're going to, there's opportunity for you to go and see new vendors. So number 1, you walk the floor before ever attending appointment. Number 2, you've got to commit to spend at least 20 to 30% of your open to buy on test vendors and test merchandise. Test vendors that I haven't worked with in the last year, products I perhaps haven't carried in my store. And, we're going to market with this preformed knowledge, this preformed education about what our customer spending habits have been in my store at the class or category level, not the vendor level.
I was going to ask, is it test category, Dan, or
category?
Okay.
Test new products within your categories.
Okay.
Right. You got to know what categories are on in your store and which ones are off. And more importantly than fixing the ones that are off, replicate the ones that are on. Figure out why it's working. Is it price point, style, color, fit? Is it a utensil? What is it? Is it a tool? Why is it working? Not why is it not working? We often spend so much time, Rob, beating ourselves up for what we don't know. We hold ourselves to this, unachievable standard on what we don't know. Man, don't worry about what you don't know. Focus on what you do know and replicate the success that you have, not the failures that you're having. How do you ignore failure? Identify the steps to success in every category. Price point, margin. Everything is important here in identifying why is something working. So you've got to commit 20 to 30% of your open to buy on test merchandise, test vendors, test categories, and see where the lines can be bowed in your store right now.
Awesome.
Number 3 for me is you got to own your power. And what do I mean when I say own your power? Independent retailers are the most powerful entities at market. You're not shopping alongside Macy's. You're shopping alongside other indie retailers, right? You got to own your power. You've got to be aggressive. We buy aggressively. We play offense, not defense at market. It's way better to overbuy and cut or trim orders than it is to underbuy. The greatest, fastest death sentence in retail is underbuying, not overbuying. And, this may be a contentious issue with some, but I would much rather hold hands with a retailer that's overbought than one that's underbought. Underbought, no sales. No inventory, no sales. Overbought, lots of inventory. Maybe I got to mark it down to get some cash, but at least I've got something to sell. So you got to be aggressive. What else does it mean to own your power? You've got to be data driven. You've got to come to market with a bit of science behind your art, right? And be data driven. I love this, but the data tells me maybe I'm the only one that's going to love it. Lean hard on data. And the last thing you've got to be to own your power is you've got to be forgiving. You got to erase the past, broken relationships, strained relationships that have happened in the last, 18 months or in your previous life with a vendor. Just be forgiving, start anew, own your power, go in there like, hey, we're starting fresh from today.
Yep.
Yeah. The most powerful thing we can do is forgive.
Sell me, win me over again. What do you got?
Yeah.
What do you
Let's
got?
figure this out together.
Yeah.
So Kay did not send this message through the Wealthy Retailer, nor did I ask for her permission to share it. But I'm going to ask for forgiveness.
I was just going to say, go with the forgiveness line, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah. So retailers, any question you have, just fire an email to dan@thewealthyretailer.com. And let's just work through this together. Yep. This happened to be a question that Kay had that repeated itself 3 or 4 times in a matter of a few days. So your question may not be your question. It may be a lot of people's questions. So do yourself and your community a favor and ask it. Don't ever be afraid to put your hand up and say, hey, got a question. Dan@thewealthyretailer.com, and I promise you get an answer right away.
Perfect. And folks, if you haven't yet, please head to retailbycrs.com. Sign up for the newsletter. As Dan said, we got the links to these stories in here. A lot of good stuff to, you heard it, you heard the bit of the view on it, but your chance to dive in and read it as well. In addition, we'll have a few more stories. We've got one talking about, when you're a small independent operator, obviously best practices and labor management are crucial to your bottom line. We got a story about how managers should approach their labor management. And I like this one. It was a pretty cool, I believe it was like a DBA person or that viewpoint, observations from downtown small businesses, and that not only survived the economic storm, but are also well positioned to emerge stronger from it. It was a story just kind of written from that viewpoint of, we'll call it fact of what they witnessed over the past year.
Right.
Those who thrived and sharing some good ideas there. And then the good old the rise of curbside pickup and a story about best practices for retailers. So we'll have those links in this week's newsletter. And great job, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. Listen, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Really do appreciate it. Feel free to leave a comment on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. And if you feel like you want to watch us two clowns, you can head over to the YouTube page at The Wealthy Retailer and watch this video. But whatever you do, I hope you have a fabulous week in retail.